of that person be part of that name, if you will. So instead of random names that never get connected to actually who is this person and how they relate to the other person, you're trying to help them do that in the first couple chapters of a novel. That's a chapter book. And now they're interested in the story. Oftentimes they can continue on their own then because they have some of that background that connects different people to different stuff and so on. And now that they're interested, they can kind of do it on their own. So making sure, and if it's math, how do I help a kid be more interested in math? What might be a context that would be interesting to them that they could apply what I'm trying to help them grasp? Breaking it down to their level of competence, that's giving that just right amount of help and so on. Helping them discern what are the important aspects. Like, I want you to pay attention to this. At home, kids have a to-do list to get ready for bed. You need to go brush your teeth. You need to put on your pajamas. You need, and it's a whole sentence for each thing. You can break down into words. Teeth, toilet, jammies. Way less words. How do I emphasize important aspects? Minimize their frustration, and then modeling and demonstrating, and it gives you some ideas about how to do that. Like sometimes I'll just say to kids, I want you to look over there. Tell me what you see. I'm not giving them an instruction. I'm hoping they'll see they've left a big old fat mess over there, and most of the time they spontaneously start putting stuff away, which I can then reinforce that. Oh, thank you for picking up. I really like it enough to tell you. I didn't think you were aware of that. And so I really appreciate you taking care of it once you became aware of it. Right? So how do I help them get the information they're missing in a way that empowers them and helps them feel good, not dumb? That's kind of what I'm doing all the time. Providing choices. We're going to talk a lot about choices. Choices are very empowering, but they also help me problem solve. What are some of the options out there that could help me with this problem? When I was doing my dissertation, I mentioned I'm not good at math. Oh, lots of data, interpretation in a dissertation. And I was like, oh. My brain would just go. Boop. So I'd call my advisor and I'd be like, okay, I know we've talked about this and I know you told me, but my brain lost it. Is how I'd literally say my question. And he would just sort of do a pondering response, like, well, I'm thinking that something, and he'd put two things together that would help my brain remember. And then, oh, thank you. And then I'd have to hang up right away before I forgot. Anyway, that was exactly what I needed. And he was doing suggestions or providing some choices or another way to think about, or it's this and this, those important aspects. Oh yeah, it's those two things I want to pay attention to or whatever. So these are the ways we help fill in the parts their brain is missing or stuck on or has trouble doing. And then as they get better at it, because the more you practice, the better you get at anything, right? Math will never be my strength, but I can do math. And the more I practice math and the more people who coached me and helped me understand why I did this versus that and whatever, I can do, everyday math. Am I a mathematician for calculus? Absolutely not. Do I even want to be? No. If I chose a profession with calculus, would that be a good fit for me? Depends on how bad I want to learn calculus. Doesn't mean no, it means depends. But how do I withdraw over time and really celebrate their success and their bigger independence? My 1.5-year-old grandson got a blood draw yesterday. Well, most of the time he'll go to the doctor and freaks out if the doctor wants to touch him, like look in his ear, freaks out. Well, he handled this blood draw like a champ, his mom said. So we got home, I was babysitting, and I go, I hear he handled it. And you got a Band-Aid. I made all this big deal out of his Band-Aid and how big he is. And he went, he was so proud of himself. And it was awesome. Did he cry? Absolutely. But he didn't go up here like he might otherwise. And I'm just talking about how brave he was, even though it hurt a little. And look at that, you got a Band-Aid. How cool is that? And blah, blah, blah. And he just thought that was the best. And that's what you want him to take from it, not, oh, the blood draw hurt and it was a terrible experience, because he'll take that to the next one, right? Instead, it was, wow, it was hard and you did it. Yay. So how do I withdraw support, but how do I reinforce the strength and positive and challenge? And I overcame it, even though it was hard. And that's how you empower kids. But first, we have to have that goal and expectation that is within my ability to achieve if I put some effort in. Okay. Shifting gears just a little. So there's this program called the Nurtured Heart Approach. Howard Glasser is the author of it, and he has a book, couple books, but Transforming the Difficult Child is his book that he has several editions of, and it's research based and so simple and yet so hard and so effective. So what he talks about in his approach is that the energy we adults give to any behavior of a child will reinforce the behavior. So my example of he was so brave and such a big boy and got a band-aid and how cool are you? That's the energy that I was that is the behavior rather that I was reinforcing, rather than, well, you cried when you got your shot. If I give my energy, even if it's, oh, I'm so disappointed in you, I'm reinforcing that behavior. So energy is emotional excitement, disapproval, our emotional energy. That's what he's talking about. Because energy is emotion and attention and can be positive or negative. But whichever it is, if we give it to that behavior, we're reinforcing the behavior. So, strategy, focus your energy on the desired behavior more than the energy you give the problem. Okay. So he talks about quick, short consequence, rejoin group, like just a quick interrupt it, start again, interrupt it, start again for the things you don't want happening. And when they do what you want them to do, to be very excited and give it lots of energy. So the challenge is controlling your own emotional responses when you're mad and giving that less energy externally to the child than when they make the right choice. Like you give a direction, the kid ignores you and they've done it 100 times and you're mad at them now. And now you want to yell at them because they're ignoring you. I would say in your own brain, the policy is I'm going to give you the direction. If you ignore me, I'm going to have a procedure. And here's my script. What was the direction? Deer in the headlights. I'm always willing to repeat it if they're ready to listen. So I go, are you ready to listen? I'm going to say it again. Blah, blah, blah. What was my direction? Blah, they repeat it back. Some kids can repeat it back and they still haven't processed it. True. Especially executive skills challenged kids. Like they can repeat the words, but they haven't thought about what do those words mean. And sometimes you can tell because you'd expect them to have some kind of, I don't want it right now or something. And they just repeat them back like they're just words. And you're like, and what does that mean? I want you to do. Now I'm going to have them paraphrase or something, right? And that's when it finally goes in and so on. So it's tricky, but what was the direction? What does that mean I want you to do? When do you think I want you to do it? And then if they do it, I'm going to go, thank you so much for doing that. I'm really proud of you. I know that was hard or you didn't feel like it. I'm going to validate they didn't want to. And if they continue to ignore, I'm just going to give some choices, a quick, short consequence. And usually it's some version of, well, you can either do it now or you can put down what you're doing. And I call it being on hold until you're ready. So not in timeout, not in trouble, just waiting, like giving your brain whatever time it needs to get ready to manage this challenge of whatever the direction was. Kids get on hold better than adults. I'll explain it. And by the way, on hold, the way I use timeout, those are on slides at the back of your handout. So they are kind of written down in your handouts. But on hold is waiting, like when you're on hold on the phone. Remember when cords were on phones and you couldn't just go all over your house and do things or wherever you are? Remember that? Some of you are old enough to remember that. So you are on hold and it's like you can't get anything done on hold because you're on the phone and it's got a cord and you're limited. So that's the idea. You're just waiting. But in this case, waiting for your brain to catch up, not for someone else to come back on the phone. So you're on hold until you're ready to get the task completed. And then you can move on. And you are in complete control, kid, of when that ends, how long it takes, and how much of your life you miss out on getting ready to manage this direction. If the direction is beyond their ability, usually while they're being on hold, they start to tell you why they can't do it. And you really need to listen to those things and problem solve them if they come up. But most of the time it's just getting their emotional self ready to tolerate something they don't feel like doing. And you're just giving them time to do it without being in trouble. And you're not repeating yourself 100 times and getting mad about it. Okay, so a quick, short consequence. Think about choices, follow the direction, or, you can be on hold until. Active defiance and things that you need to quit yelling and screaming and kicking my seat when I'm driving the car because it's unsafe. Plus, it's so loud, it's upsetting, which makes it harder for me to be a safe driver. If you won't stop, I need to pull over because safety first. And now we're wasting time because I can't continue to get to our destination if you're being unsafe in the car. I understand you're upset about whatever you're upset about, and we can figure that out, but first we have to be safe. You don't want to be safe. Like if it's a choice, if they're truly in a rage and not thinking anymore, that not what I'm talking about. I'm talking when they still can make active choices, even though they're very angry and dysregulated. I'm going to wait, but if it goes on longer than a minute or two, I'm going to turn on a timer, and however long it takes for you to be safe again is how much time you've wasted of mine and whoever else is in the car, and you have to make that up to people. Usually it looks like helping me with something when I get home that I would have to do so I can get my time back. Does that make sense? So that's relationship reconciliation kind of stuff. How did I affect you? I will make that up to you by, and we'll keep track of time. And kids don't like that. It's amazing. And you're out of it, helps you not be in a power struggle. I'll just wait. You're not in trouble, but you're going to owe the time back because we got to wait till you're safe. Now, can I still be mad and crying as long as it's not so loud it's dysregulating to me as the driver? Yes. We're not going for calm and happy. We're going for safe. Once you're safe, we can proceed. And I know you're still mad, and we'll figure it out when we get home. I'm always saying we will figure it out because we will. I don't know what that means. I don't. Till I talk about what you're upset about, why you're upset, what are our options, what would work for you and whoever else is involved in the problem. That's problem solving. We'll figure it out together. That's always at the end in terms of the final goal. Right? So energy is emotion, attention reinforces, so on. Quick, short consequence, usually a removal for, and his is, he calls it a quick reset. So he uses that word differently than I do. But it's a like, poof, take a pause, come back, take a pause, come back, take a pause, come back. Okay. It is enormously effective and empowering and builds self-esteem and self-confidence and helps kids feel part of a group and successful. And it's really helpful to parents to start trying, and teachers, anyone in a high stress job where kids' behavior can be frustrating and dysregulating to you. If you start focusing on how often they're doing what you're expecting, and meeting expectations appropriately, you're going to be pleasantly surprised that even the most disrespectful, dysregulated, difficult child is doing what you want more minutes of the day than not. And if we start focusing on those, we feel better, but also it starts empowering kids and helping them feel better about, okay, I was successful here and here and here and here, and I messed up here, but I got all this other stuff that I did well, right? It starts to balance and help reinforce the parts where they're doing what we want. So some of the research around his nurtured heart approach. So in this study, and it was done by Arizona School of Public Health, 3 main symptoms associated with ADHD include hyperactivity, impulsivity, and inattention. Went from significantly a problem, measured before they applied the nurtured heart approach, okay, using the Connor scale, to negligible merely by way of a 6-week online parenting format based on the nurtured heart approach. That's pretty significant. Did they still have ADHD? Yes. Were they significantly more regulated as parents started doing this process with kids? Yes. Not meds. That's pretty significant. And then this is a chart that sort of breaks down some of the numbers of what they were measuring and what it looked like. So the nurtured heart group, control group, inattention, hyperactivity, learning problems, executive functions, defiance, aggression, and peer relationships. The ones with an asterisk were clinically significant, meaning there was a big enough change that it's pretty likely not by chance that that change happened. All the numbers showed improvement, but these last two were not big enough change to call it clinically significant. Could have been by chance. But it's pretty powerful just focusing on when kids are doing things well with a quick, short pause or consequence, get back right into the situation and keep reinforcing when they're doing it right. Like, have you ever seen kid go and they stop themselves? They were going to hit or they were going to take it and then they stopped themselves. You want to notice that and go, good job. You stopped yourself. That was really good. Like, yay, right? You want them to get better at that. You want to notice when they stop themselves. And then another thing that was found not clinically significant, but showed positive movement was a decline in parent reported distress. Parents felt a little more confident, a little less distressed compared to control parents. Some other findings in another study. Some of the things they were studying were adjustment disorders, so mental health, learning disabilities, neurodivergence with ADHD, another neurodivergent condition, and taught parents the Nurtured Heart approach. They have the 6-week online course that you can sign up and pay for. But the results rather showed that the Nurtured Heart approach is the mechanism. You always hear this mechanism of change. Well, this is this learning this process based on improving the quality of parent-child interactions. As parents' awareness and education about the etiology of a behavior and behavioral challenge, as they understood it better, the adaptive and social behavioral skills of children improved. In other words, as I understood what was going on better with my kid, I was better able to validate the challenges and struggles, problem solve, and reinforce positive behaviors, which then had an effect on my child's adaptive and social behavioral skills. Modeling, teaching, supporting, zone of proximal development. Parents felt more competent in their parenting skills. So that's a restructuring in my own belief of myself, right? And teachers' mindset about a child's behavior improved, thus improving the relationship between student and teacher. Teachers got better at validating and understanding and empathizing with kids, and that resulted in more success experience for the students, which that you can see the cognitive restructuring for the student. Then I can be successful. I am successful right now, things like that. Children's sense of self-efficacy and well-being also improved. So all good stuff, all from doing this very simple shift in how we respond to behavior and what we are focused on and truly attending to the most. Okay, so these are 6 steps in trying to think about what is it I do. Do you ever get so close to something you can't step back and see what you're doing? That's me when I talk about what I'm doing with kids every day. But so these are the kind of the things, and some of it goes along with problem solving models that are research based, like Ross Green's collaborative proactive solutions. The very first step in his model is validating with compassion and empathy, which is vitally important. Vitally, how often do we forget to do that? More often than you think. And people often don't think about validation as a therapeutic intervention, and yet it is one that has research and everything. Anytime someone feels defensive about something, validation is a really helpful tool to help them feel less defensive. I know you're really upset. And often validation really needs to focus on the emotion of something. Like they're upset, they're angry, they're refusing because it's too upsetting, they believe it's too hard. And if it is too hard right now, I believe you, and I'm trying to understand what's making it hard. Now I'm problem solving. So validate, identify what is the child's perception of what's going on, and gain insight into how the child's brain processes and functions and what is upsetting to them. In other words, embrace their perspective, not because I agree, but because it is theirs. That is their perspective or their perception, and I'm going to validate it. This is your perception. Doesn't mean I agree with you. It means you are saying this, and I hear you saying this is upsetting, or whatever it might be. And you got to do that until they believe you get it. So sometimes that's all you're doing for a while. Okay. But you'll know when they believe you get it because they'll start to calm and be less defensive. Okay. The next thing I think about always in terms of framing things in my own brain is we are a team. So if I'm a classroom teacher, me and all my students are a team in how our classroom functions. And within our classroom, we have lots of different learning styles, learning needs, learning strengths, learning weaknesses, and it has nothing to do with how smart anybody is. Are there differences in intelligence? Yes. That's not my point. I can have a learning disability and be gifted in my IQ. So I'm talking about learning differences that don't have anything to do with intelligence. But even if intelligence is thrown in there, all right, well, that's still a need that I have, that this isn't going to be as easy because my intelligence is different than this person over here. And therefore, I need different support. Okay. So we're all different. We all have different strengths and different challenges, and we are all going to work together so that everybody can learn in our classroom this year to the best of their ability. We have to work together. And what does that mean? Well, we're going to figure that out every day as we get to know each other and so on. But I'm always working to normalize difference. Difference doesn't make it better or worse or right or wrong. It's just different. And I do that in families. Like, you are all in a huge conflictual relationship right now, and everybody's trying their hardest, and it's not going very well. So we are not looking at whose fault is this. We're